Welcome to HMG Live.
How are we more responsible with our employees by making sure that we have created the most, equitable and inclusive workforce, and are taking, actions, not just words, but actions to ensure that we have a workplace where employees can do the work of their lives.
It is time to look at this thoughtfully and really seize on the opportunities that it provides us.
This is an opportunity to change the way we work, to change the way we collaborate, to change the culture of the whole workforce in the United States.
A lot of the decisions that you make may or may not be right at the end of the crisis, right? So you have to be courageous enough to continue to make those decisions very quickly.
The focus now is the fusion of human and technology, and how do we have organizations that are technology organizations, but are human, they're distinctly human.
This will be a time of innovation.
HMG Live virtual summits are offered by HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you reinvent an innovative future of work. A warm welcome to today's host, lead principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good afternoon for those folks who are joining us in the East and the New York metro area, in New Jersey, and good morning to those folks on the West Coast that are joining us. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. I think we have a world-class agenda, amazing summit. So buckle up and let's get going. Welcome to the 2020 New Jersey CIO Executive Leadership Summit, HMG Lives. Today's summit is powered by Commvault, Nutanix, Rimini Street, as well as Softtech. We couldn't do what we do without their support, continued support. So please visit them and find out more about their solutions and services and support their efforts. A warm welcome to our association partner, president of the SIM New Jersey chapter, Steve Landry. Steve, welcome to the program. It's great to be partnering with you now over 12 years.
Oh, thank you, Hunter. NJ SIM is proud to be a sponsor of today's New Jersey CIO Virtual Summit. As Hunter mentioned, I'm Stephen Landry. I'm Chief Information Officer for Seton Hall University. Seton Hall's motto is forward despite obstacles. The last few months have certainly presented many obstacles, but collaboration and information sharing among colleagues, such as we're doing at today's summit, are a vital part of overcoming these obstacles. The New Jersey Society for Information Management, NJSIM for short, is a group of about 275 IT leaders who live or work in New Jersey. Our mission is to provide opportunities for IT practitioners to meet, collaborate, and learn about best practices in technology and management. We believe that by sharing our experience, we're able to help each other solve common IT obstacles and deliver value to the businesses we serve. NJSIM is a member-led organization. When you attend NJSIM meetings, either in person or for the time being, of course, virtually, you'll be engaging with other IT practitioners. All the programs and services we provide are planned and delivered by our members. And our services, I should mention, go beyond our regular meetings and roundtables. Our foundation, for example, provides local nonprofits with financial and technical assistance. Last year, among other activities, the NJSIM Foundation supported Big Brother and Big Sisters of New Jersey, Women Rising of Hudson County, and awarded scholarships to 4 outstanding New Jersey college students. If you're not currently a member of NJSIM, please join. The more of us who work together, the greater the likelihood that we'll find a way to go forward despite obstacles. For more information or to join, please visit our website. You see the website up there. It is njsim.org. I'll repeat, that's njsim.org, njsim.org. Thank you and have a great summit.
Excellent, Steve. Thanks so much. We have Mark Taylor from the SIM International, the president. Mark?
Thanks so much, Hunter, and for Steve and the leadership team in New Jersey. They have built a remarkable community of technology leaders in New Jersey, and they have been incredibly effective for many years. Steve, thank you for your investment, and you and the leadership team there. You guys have done a remarkable job. And Hunter, from me and from the rest of us, thank you for your investment from HMG into New Jersey and the chapters around the country. You guys are doing a remarkable job as well. And we thank you for amplifying what our teams are doing in each of the local markets.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for coming on the program.
You bet.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
So we have an amazing agenda today, folks. We want you to take a quick poll just to get see how our priorities have changed over the past 4 months. How have your priorities changed since COVID-19? Please vote now, and we'll bring up the results here later in the program. Let's move along. Great. So look, thanks for zooming in. We're going to roll right into our first interview. Our first interview up, it is Cecilia McKenney. Cecilia is the Senior Vice President and CHRO of Quest Diagnostics. Cecilia, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here, Hunter. Thanks.
Hey, a little bit about the context of Quest. How big? What's the scale? What do you actually do for those who don't know?
Sure. So Quest is a $7.7 billion company. We're a public company with over 46,000 employees, and we're a diagnostic. So we process healthcare tests. So we're a diagnostic testing company. But what many don't know is we are a logistics company. We complete 80,000 pickups a day. We have 27 planes that fly around the country to pick up those specimens and then get them to the right lab. And overnight, we result over 1 million tests, and then by doing so, touch 1/3 of adult Americans every year. So we're the largest diagnostic company in America, and certainly very much in demand right now. Given our work, the vast majority of our employees have to come into work during COVID. We have about 46,000 employees, and 37,000 are coming into a Quest site every day, dedicated 24/7 to process COVID tests. And it's just been an amazing experience. The FDA granted us emergency use authorization, or they call it EUA, to Quest on February 29th. And we began testing in San Juan Capistrano in California on March 9th. And since then, we have performed over 7.4 million, that's with an M, COVID tests since then.
Hey, Cecilia, that's amazing. Really impressive. And thanks for the frontline work that you all are doing. Your CEO really is a visionary. Talk to us about some of the strategic relationships that he's put in place in just the past 4 months.
So Steve Raskowski is our CEO, and he is a leader that translates vision that he has, he's incredible, as you said, into action and results, and is a big believer in doing that with partnerships, because that enables faster innovation and faster go-to-market. And Steve, as he joined the company, wanted to shift the company from being a B2B to, largely to hospitals and physicians, to B2B and B2C. So getting healthcare insights directly to consumers. And he did that by forging a partnership with Walmart. And the vision was, let's put the diagnostic draw center, so the patient center where you go to donate or get your blood drawn, in the front of the Walmart store, where consumers are shopping every day. And that has really been a tremendous disruption to how people get, experience getting their blood drawn or their urine donated for testing. And so since then, we have put Quest Diagnostic Centers in 78 Walmart stores. And this partnership, who would have ever thought it would be absolutely essential in COVID? Walmart and Quest are members of Vice President Pence's coronavirus task force. And, early in March, Steve got a call from Vice President Pence to come down to DC, and he and Doug McMillon, got to talking with Vice President Pence, who asked them, how do we ramp up testing very, very quickly? And, we got leaders together and came up with this idea of offering testing in parking lots. So drive up testing. Who would have ever thought we would be doing drive up testing? And now we are in 250 Walmarts around the country offering drive up testing in parking lots today. And that will grow through the summer. And for those in New Jersey, I know we're speaking, there are 3 in New Jersey, and you can find out on our website if you do need testing, which Walmart to go to.
Cecilia, a great story. And you probably have a bunch of lessons on leadership in a crisis, being in the HR space. Talk to us about some lessons learned.
Yeah, it has been incredibly humbling to sort of relearn how to lead in COVID. And, I'd offer a few, but who would have ever thought being agile would be so exhausting? And I'm sure everybody's nodding on this summit, and that working at home might be harder than working in the office, but that certainly has been the case over the last 3 months. But what I feel like has been a huge difference in effectively leading through crisis are 3 things. One is over communicate. I have this expression 7 times 7 different ways. COVID has been so stressful that, without a pandemic, adults retain about 30% of what they hear. So repetition in communication is so important so we can hear the other 70%. So we have used multiple mediums to communicate, whether it's video, email, conference calls. We've even sent letters home from Steve to families so that they get the message on Quest priority and that we care. And that we also have to remind leaders, I think COVID has sort of immobilized some people, depending upon what's going on in their family situation. And leaders have to be reminded, we call it the communication cascade, that, we share information with you, but then it's your job to make sure that you are over communicating, reaching out to your employees. So that's kind of number 1, over communicate 7 times 7 different ways. The next one is transparency and care. We have found ourselves talking much more familial, being much more expressive, using, just very emotional words to try to get across, because we can't be together. So to try to connect, use more emotional words. And so, we were, despite doing all this testing, as I said, our base business was incredibly, hit. So we had to furlough and reduce schedules and implement pay cuts. We're an Oracle cloud shop. And, I partnered with Gabrielle Wolfson, our CIO, because we had to very quickly update Oracle to enable some of the workforce actions. And we had to explain why. And we had to use words like shared sacrifice and, we want to keep jobs because we care about you in the long term. So transparency and care would be the second. And then the third is, make sure that you use data to drive your decisions. Don't let your emotions, get in your way, and be comfortable. That's probably the most important thing, is changing your plan. COVID has changed so much day to day, week to week, state to state, that, we had a return to office plan mapped out, and we had picked Texas and Florida. That's where we were going to start. And frankly, our leaders, particularly in Texas, really wanted to get started back in the office. And we dug in, pushed back, and said, wait, let's do it methodically. And my goodness, thank goodness we did, because now we've changed that plan. We're probably going to hold for the rest of the summer before we try to return to the office. But, being comfortable, some might call it flip-flop, but you got to let the data tell you what to do. So being comfortable changing what the decision you made a few weeks ago or just a week ago may be, not the right one for today.
Hey, Cecilia, this is brilliant. So great tips on leadership and keeping people engaged. How important is it keeping people engaged, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I tell you, we certainly have tried lots of things that haven't worked. And I'm always learning on this, how to keep people engaged during COVID. But I have to say, to me, you know, that communication is an overused word, but it is absolutely essential. And what I would say, consistency of communication, because COVID changed everyone's routines to some extent overnight. And people were clamoring for a new normal, new routines to ground them. How do I make sure, you know, because it's hard to work from home. It's hard to work with PPE all over you. It's, you know, and all these new rules. So what we did is we created, on March 19th, we just decided we're going to do an all leader call. We have over 2,500 people leaders at Quest. And we said, we're going to do two every Wednesday at the same time, and you know, and talk about the most current urgent issues related to the COVID response plan. And then perhaps most importantly, we partnered with our communications team. We use a Quest, you know, it's a poll, a texting poll, as well as chat. So everybody could ask questions anonymously, which I think is really important. And you know, we didn't shy away from answering, you know, some of the tough questions, like, you know, people are like, well, now can we work permanently at home? Or when is the 401k match going to be restored? And I was very transparent to say, you know, whatever the answer is, like, no, you know, right now the 401k match is not going to be restored. We will revisit it in Q3. Or you're just being very honest. And then what we evolved to is every call has a leader tip and tool. So they walk away with something that will help them be a better leader to engage their employees in a meaningful way in the next week.
Hey, that's brilliant.
What we just added, just one other thing, we added just last week, we found, we did a pulse survey, and we found that some employees still felt like they weren't hearing all the key messages. So we've now put together a one-page talking point. So here's a recap of the call so that you have sort of an outline to use to communicate with your employees.
Excellent job, Cecilia. Thank you so much for coming on today's program. We have to move to our next segment, but that was really, truly brilliant.
Thanks, Hunter. Great to be with you.
Great to be with you. See you soon. Next up, we have Gerard Insall, the CIO of Avis Budget Group. Gerard, you've been busy leading in uncertain times. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, more than anyone, travel, the travel industry, leisure industry, hotels, hospitality got hit hard. You guys are right in the middle of that. How did you respond to this whole pandemic, COVID-19, and where are you now in terms of your innovation plan, your transformation plan?
Well, within a matter of 2 to 4 months, we reinvented the entire company. Fortunately, we had been building over the last several years. We had an innovation and a major transformation program going on that included, you know, modernizing our legacy systems. We had just finished that, so it was great timing. We had also built a foundation of our new connected car platform, which really is a platform where we'll automate pretty much everything around the vehicle with great telematics information and analytics capabilities. And when we had to drastically reduce our staff around the world in line with the business downturn, it was because of these things that enabled us to actually automate most of the operations and still conduct the business with so few people compared to what we had. You know, the same platform also built our API platform on it as a subset, and that API platform made it really easy for us to connect with partners. And in actuality, it enabled us to win a big piece of business with the French railroad company, SNCF, which was worth about $100 million a year to us. And it was because of how quickly we could connect to their systems and provide different features and products that no one else could in such a quick time that we were able to win that piece of business. You know, we as I said, we reinvented our entire company. We reduced our staff close to 65% within a month. We cut in excess of $2 billion, and that's really been how we've been able to survive. But in addition to that, we performed a company-wide org design process within a month, and we redesigned every organization and changed the way we did business. And I could say overnight, we went from a hybrid methodology where we used Agile, but not consistently. And I would say everything we do now is now Agile. You know, when you have so many less people, you actually can focus, and the business and the technology teams can really get together and work in a better Agile method. We focused everything we did as far as investments on 3 key areas: the customer journey, logistics, and shared services. And we put an IT sponsor and a business sponsor on each of those areas and prioritized and really brought down the initiatives to the ones that mattered to enable us to survive and to innovate and to differentiate ourselves until the economy gets back up to where it was, which could be as long as 2 years before the travel industry picks back up, Hunter.
Hey, Gerard, you know, they say never let a crisis go to waste. It seems to me that you folks just jumped in, leading courageously, leading passionately and authentically, and really dove in and really took this on. And what's unfolded is a new company.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what's interesting, you know, as tough as it was, and it really is a tough thing to go through, you know, especially with all the job losses we've had to experience. But there's been some positives, right? So Zipcar, the world's largest car sharing brand, you know, over the last 5 years, there's been a ton of startups and companies out there that have really cut into our share. Well, all those companies have pretty much gone bankrupt, and so now we're back to kind of getting a lot of that share back. In addition, because of some of the cleanliness things that we have, you know, people are forgoing going on planes and taking some shorter trips via cars. If you take a look at ride hailing, which was a big impact on our car sharing business, that now people don't want to get into ride hail cars because there could be as many as 60 people in that car every day. And, you know, I don't think they're guaranteed to be clean. We're focused on you know, our Avis safety pledge to clean the cars. We created a board of scientists to advise us to come up with a 15-point checklist that certifies our cleaning process to ensure that our employees and our customers are safe during this whole process. You know, then we're also one of the big things that came out, you know, public transportation. People just don't want to get on a bus or a subway anymore. So we're seeing our commuter product for the car sharing business grow as well. In addition, the food delivery and the package delivery businesses has grown tremendously. So we're actually taking advantage of the ride hail companies that have gotten into the Eats business, and they're actually renting our cars for their drivers so that they can expand the number of drivers. And our truck commercial vehicle division has grown tremendously because of all the package delivery. We actually, even though we're cash strapped, we felt it was such a good benefit. We went out and bought more commercial vans so that we could meet the demand, growing demand of that business. You know, last but not least, you know, we use this to create a new model. You know, we believe the subscription business is untapped and no one really is doing it and owns it. We're going to go out and own it. So we're creating a new subscription product under the brand of FlexCar, I should say. And we're going to be piloting that in early August. So, you know, as tough as it's been, we've really took the bull by the horn and came up with some opportunities that came out of it. And it's really what's keeping us afloat. And I think when the thing turns around, it's really, really going to put us as a differentiated company.
What an amazing story. How would you characterize your leadership style during this crisis?
Well, you know, Cecilia highlighted the number one thing, communication. You know, Zoom is probably the best thing that's happened to collaboration. We hold bi-weekly town halls and we share every piece of information that we have to keep the employees up to date with everything going on, the good and the bad. We show them, you know, everything before it goes out to the public so they feel part of this thing. And, you know, as far as my leadership style is really one of a very collaboration and team. And that's what we promote. We create teams and accountability. We really drive accountability down to the individuals. and we set the proper metrics to guide them.
Fascinating stuff. We'll catch you later on the panel here. Gerard, thanks for coming on the program. Great job.
Thanks, Hunter. Look forward to it.
Looking forward to it as well. Next up, we have Brian Brockway, VP and CTO of Commvault, securing and protecting your sensitive data in the new normal. Brock, welcome to the program. You know, Brock, today our panels will hit on some exciting new ways of reimagining the future of business with increased data flow, access and trust to adapt and embrace new digitized collaboration, team and customer interactions in completely new ways, as well all start to increase our digital dependency. Every new advantage also opens potential risks, right? So we're asking Brock to come in. He was a CTO from Commvault, really a leader in data management solutions, to join us and share some perspective on how many of the leading organizations are balancing those new benefits and risks. Brock, good to see you.
Hey, Hunter, glad to be here.
So look, kick it off. Let us know, give us the context. What's going on in the whole data management protection environment right now?
Sure. So I think as just a couple of the prior speakers were mentioning, data is one of the key elements these days. It's flowing faster. It's driving a lot of decisions. More and more businesses becoming agile behind the data. And what we found as your dependencies on data are increasing, there's also a dependency you have to think about on protection, recovery. You know, what happens if the flow stops? And in more and more cases, this is decisions and kind of infrastructure that in days of the past, you kind of leave it to the backup and protection teams. But I think as the business is now starting to flow, you've got remote teams coming in and working in a more collaborative nature. You have to really start to think about hardening the environment and saying, do we have a strong recovery strategy built around to ensure that we don't have any missteps?
Interesting. I mean, are the potential risks and costs are huge, right?
Absolutely. And I think we've all seen these on the front pages. You know, the headlines, it's the cyber crime, it's the cyber events, so on and so forth. And these days, it's not just a small collection of laptops that got corrupted and are being held hostage for a bit of Bitcoins. In more and more cases these days, we're seeing customers come over, get hit by one of these events. It becomes extremely widespread. Like I said, it's not just the laptops, but it goes across the enterprise. And we've been seeing it on support calls and other events. We're helping customers come back over and effectively rebuild the enterprise from a data perspective, out of the backup environments, out of the recovery environments, either on their production sites, or in many cases, if that's still going to be out of action for a while, do they have to be able to go over, pick it up, and then rebuild it in the cloud?
So how big of a loss can one take?
Yeah, in I'll say most cases these days, and Accenture just published a study on this not too long ago. One of these large scale events can start off with about a $10 million price tag. And that's not only time and energy, it's the impact, all the other aspects. We've had a couple of customers, and one not too long ago went through a pretty major event in Europe. It shut down the supply chain. So it shut down about 5 or 6 of their manufacturing facilities. They went dark for a month as they had to go back in and rebuild and bring everything back up. So some of those events can go from that 10 million to much more of a $100 million impact. We think about it in today's environment now too, where you're collaborative, you're spread out, you're distributed. Contemplating having to go dark for weeks is in some cases an unimaginable number. That's where we're seeing a lot of people come back over to re-architect.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next? I mean, how best to get ready to protect the data and look at this whole readiness concept?
Yeah, so as with everything, kind of starts with a bit of readiness audit. So how do you go back in and look internal to your existing organizations and processes, start off with a little bit of hardening. In the environment today, how have we applied security measures? How have we added additional layers, and have we done data separation? So if we did lose one environment or one part of the business or some compromised privileges from a rogue admin, how do we limit the scope of that action and ensure that we have other data sets positioned at other places to be able to come back over and recover in a faster basis. So a lot of it starts with that foundational audit check, find the gaps, correct the gaps when we can in the light of day, then go back in and add, more of the validation and automation, some of the other techniques, because as we're all saying, these are becoming now board level discussions where it's not the annualized DR plan on paper. You have to come over and basically prove it and reprove it every 90 days.
So you have a 4-point model that you basically work clients through?
We do. And a lot of this has come out of those best practices with customers that have gone through some of these events. Like I said, it starts with the secure nature. How do you go into the existing, find your data copies, find your security? Do we have everything locked down, and do we have some good roles and separation established across the business? Then once we have the data in a solid, kind of a solid secure mode, can we come off and can we actually simulate and validation recovery exercises? So this is coming back over to not just hope we've got data copies, but we actually have to go to what happens if we have to go and recover it back up. Can we do it? And then can we not do it on a few? What happens if we have to make a few turn into 1,000 tomorrow morning? Once you get those kind of two pieces working well, then it's a little bit more of that top-down business risk strategy of, okay, let's classify the overall environment. If I have 10,000 systems that we use on a daily basis, we can't afford the same level and SLA across all 10,000. It's usually too expensive. So how do we start to break it into different groups, apply some analytics, a little bit of AI and some other smarts to that to start to help us classify, and really that's what drives us into that readiness capability. How do we quantify and measure, find the gaps, close the gaps, and then the final piece of the puzzle is really starting to use more automation. I think of some of those discussions we're talking about, the more you can automate these scenarios, the more you can measure them, the more you can ensure you can sleep soundly at night, and if something happens, you can recover yourself back up into fast action.
Hey, Brock, that seems like a really sound advice. And you work cross-industry folks through the readiness curve concept all the time, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's these days, those kind of events are not picking out any particular industries. As we're seeing, it's going up and down the scale. Large global enterprises, and some of them have actually had events that reach into the billions of dollars of impact a couple years ago. All the way down to small, regional K through 12 type organizations. So it's something that is becoming basically part of the new business thread. You have to think about this, prepare for it, have a strategy, exercise it, and make sure you can respond when you need to.
How can people get in touch with you, Brock, at Commvault, and what's the next step?
Sure. So I'll drop my email into the chat sessions, but we also added a nice, there's a drop down for one of these best practice papers that tries to take this and put it into a bit more of the CIO, CISO level understanding of where do we look at some of these risks and other aspects. How should I go back and talk with the team to say, how have they helped to close some of these gaps? And if I do have some exposure points, maybe it's time for a discussion.
Hey, thanks for coming on the program, Brock, and thanks for supporting HMG strategy and the tech network that we have.
Absolutely. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thanks. Good to see you now. Next up, we have Jim Fowler, the CTO of Nationwide. Jim, welcome to the program.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Awesome. Great to see you. Jim, I've followed you over the years. We've met in different events and so forth. You've had an amazing career and obviously one of the top leaders in our industry. I'm just reflections a little bit about leading in this crisis right now, how unprecedented it is. Some 61% now of all tech leaders, based on a recent study, say the effects of the pandemic were accelerating digital transformation initiatives.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're going to look back on this, and my answer is going to sound eerily similar, almost as if I copied it from Gerard, but companies who've spent the time to do the system modernization, to get off the mainframe apps, to get to a modern technology platform, I think are the ones that we're going to find that are excelling. For the past 5 years here at Nationwide, we've been rewriting every underlying platform we have, from our policy management to retirement planning systems and life systems, And what that allowed us to do is we've been exposing all of our products and services as APIs, just like Gerard talked about. And that gave us kind of some unique capabilities when the pandemic hit. You know, internally, as an example, you know, we couldn't send people out to do blood draws for life insurance. So instead, we implemented an artificial intelligence engine using kind of all of the data, and we were able to actually develop a model where we could transact 70% of people's life insurance applications electronically with an AI engine without having to take any blood. And so we could keep our agents producing, and we could keep getting protection products out for our customers. But we also took it a step further. You know, we weren't the only ones impacted. We sell all of our products through brokers and independent agents. They're not nationwide companies. And they were hit by the pandemic as well. And they were in many cases shut down. And you know, this industry, the insurance industry and a lot of financial services is still very paper-based. And so what a lot of our agents found is, hey, their shops were closed. They couldn't do business. So we took our APIs that allow us to kind of quote, bind, and sell our products. And we white labeled them. And we gave actually snippets of code that agents, and 700 agents around the US took us up on this, where they actually just popped that code in their website. It allowed them to quote and bind insurance to their customers that looked like it was theirs. It was nationwide behind the scenes, but it allowed them to keep producing and actually keep their staffs employed during this downturn. So again, you know, just like Gerard said at Avis, this was a big turning point for us where we could keep our business running and our people working because of the investments we've made in both the underlying platforms and exposing our products and services digitally.
Thank you for the answer there, Jim. A question for you, to poke in a little bit more about leadership style. Everyone reacts differently, right? It's a very personal, professional thing. What were you thinking during those first few weeks when you knew it was going to hit North America? You probably have a global footprint, but you probably saw it coming across the globe, but you knew something dramatic was going to happen to the U.S. economy. And what were you thinking? What were you pulsing and sensing? And how did you lead at that point? And how did you facilitate and enable the CEO's vision at that point in time? Because ultimately that's what it's about, right?
You know, we have a really well-defined crisis plan. And interestingly, we have a pandemic plan. And we had actually tested the pandemic plan 24 months before this hit. So on January 23rd is the date that we actually activated our crisis plan, pulled the crisis team, including our board of directors, together and started working through the logistics of what this was really going to mean to us. And so I think part of this is, as a leader, you've got to have a plan. You got to start there, and you got to know that plan's going to be wrong, and that you're going to have to be able to pivot very quickly. And what I was just extremely happy about is the leadership team here took it on, and we started following the plan, and we would literally be up at 10 o'clock at night on the phone talking about, okay, step one didn't work the way we expected it to. What are we going to do overnight to make sure we're corrected and ready for step two? Leading up to, for us, it was March 13th. On March 13th, we made the decision that we were going to send 28,000 workers home, and with the exception of about 200 people whose jobs require them to actually be in a building to make sure there's power, water, and things aren't flooding, we actually sent 28,000 workers home overnight. And the interesting part for us is, we went for 24 hours with reduced service levels into our call centers and for operations. And within 48 hours, we were back to normal response times and call times, but not without a lot of, I'd say, back end running. So to your point, part of the leadership trait here has to be that you got to pivot quickly when things aren't working. And just one small example is, as you might expect, when the markets took a turn, our retirement plans business call volume tripled overnight. And we were able to use technology that we had in another part of our business to be able to do callback, as an example, something you might think of as being out there, but we just hadn't installed it yet in that business. And within 6 hours, we did something that normally we would have probably put on a 6-month project plan. So it was kind of that ability to rally around what was most important and critical for the moment that I think really kind of set the leadership team apart.
Has this crisis allowed you then to completely reimagine and reinvent how you go to market?
I'd say go to market and operate. On the go to market, if you look at our financial services business, we've got folks that sell into financial advisors, registered investment advisors. They don't want us coming in their office, and many of them can't go to their office. And so we've overnight gone to something that we had been kind of market testing, which is virtual wholesaling. And it's been interesting because I'll talk about this with our own internal productivity as well. The sales productivity gained from not having to have somebody travel out to a customer has been incredible. Our sales team is far more productive. They're actually able to go from call to call to call more quickly. They're able to cover more ground. And frankly, the customer is demanding it. They really don't want somebody that doesn't have to be there coming into their office, and they very much like this type of a scenario for virtual wholesaling. Flip to this, I said we had a crisis plan. Our crisis plan told us to expect a 40% reduction in productivity. What we were all surprised to find is about 3 weeks in, when we start looking at our productivity numbers, while there were some blips, for the most part, productivity leveled back out to the same levels, and in some areas above where they were before. So I'd say one of the other big strategy changes for us is we decided that we're going to have 4 physical footprints going forward, and that's it. And we're shutting down every other office that we have, and actually any workers from there, they're still going to be a Nationwide associates, but they're going to work from home permanently going forward. And so say we were surprised at the productivity levels that we're getting from work from home, and we realized that we needed far less, I'd say, physical space than we had as part of our plans. And so literally in a 48-hour period, we decided to shut down every location with the exception of 4 that we've got here in the United States.
Hey, Jim, have you done any analysis or forensics on what happened there, why people are more productive when they pick up those extra couple hours a day?
We got a couple of hypotheses. One, there was an adrenaline rush, right? People going in, they wanted to make it work. It was kind of their duty to serve our customers. We're not a publicly traded company. We are owned by our members, and I'd say there's a real culture here of making sure that we have the ability to serve them. And that's not sustainable, right? That's a push. But there's a couple other things that we found. People gave us their drive time and their lunch time. And so, if you had a 45-minute drive to and from work, we were picking up 25 to 35 of those minutes because people were still getting up at the same time and they were still putting the work effort in. They were giving us a little bit more of their lunchtime. And we actually had to back off and say, make sure you're taking care of yourself. We actually aren't asking you to work more in some cases because we saw that. I think the other thing that it's made us all take a hard look at are all those meetings that we haven't missed doing since we've been out, and really asking ourselves, what was the value of the time that we're taking people away from doing their day job to go spend time in a meeting room someplace. And so I'd say that, Hunter, those are our hypothesis. We're kind of measuring and watching to see how much of that is sustained, but that's where we see it coming from.
It's really a fascinating time, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Very fascinating.
Any projections on the future, what the future of work looks like? In parting comments, Jim?
I think that we were already headed the direction on the future of work. And we know the future of work, as all of us on this call probably know, is going to involve a lot of automation. One of the calls that we had made well before the pandemic is we were very clear about that with our associates. There's a lot of jobs that were going to go away. There were new jobs that were going to get created. And so we actually had started a program this year. Every associate has a minimum requirement of 20 hours of technical training. We've put training paths and curriculums in place. And what we said to associates is, your job may go away, but we're going to give you every opportunity to own your own career and build the skills that we think are going to be necessary for the future. And the rest is up to you. And so I think that what the pandemic did is accelerate that. Overnight, just to give you an example, we saw a 25% increase in our customers using self-service. And when you looked at the age demographics of that, it was in our older population of customers, those between the ages of 40 and 65. And you might have thought, wow, they're not going to go digital. Not the case. And I think our workforce is the exact same. Folks that you would have never expected to be knee-deep in collaboration technology are now some of the biggest experts we have. And so I think it's this ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn that's really going to set the future for everybody from a technology perspective.
Hey, Jim, is this an exciting time, given a difficult time for everyone, but is it an exciting time to be a tech professional?
Oh, I couldn't imagine being in a better time. 10 years ago, it was still more of a back office function. In the last 5 years, we've had a chance to really tackle digitization. And now the expectation is that we're in the boardroom. We're not just talking about how the company operates, but we're talking about the future strategy of the company. We retitled my job to Chief Technical Officer this year. I own both the digital strategy and the internal strategy. And it was this recognition that the IT job wasn't just a back office operations role, it is the engineering arm of a financial services company. And so when I come in during the day, yeah, I got to make sure ops is running and I got to make sure we run the place well. But more of my time is actually spent on company strategy and making sure that we've got a technology engineering organization building the technology that's going to help us grow the future of the company. And that's where I spend more of my time. And I hope most of you are as well, because I think that's the fun part of this job and what makes it so exciting right now.
Hey, Jim, great to have you on the program. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Hunter.
Take care. Bye now. Next up, reimagining the business and the future of work. Welcome, Sandeep Bajaj he's a CIO and CDO of Everest Reinsurance Company. Sandeep, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Forgot to turn my mic on.
There you go. Good to see you.
Doing great.
Hey, how was your company reacted to the whole crisis pandemic? How did you react? What was the first thing, and will you be bringing employees back anytime soon?
Sure. Thanks for that question. So I think we reacted and responded very well, and I'm super impressed with the management and the leadership at Everest Reinsurance in our ability to recognize the need to pull the plug in terms of working from home and get moving on that, because historically Everest really didn't have that big of a work from home policy as such, and making that transition. And while we had all the infrastructure and the collaborated workplace in place, we would never have expected or imagined that the entire workforce would at some point be working from home. So if I recall it right, maybe I may be off by a day or two. I think going back to March 10th, which was probably within a week's time when everybody was thinking of shutting down the state or the township, we were up and ready to go in working from home, and there was some couple of days of sleepless nights to see and imagine how things go. But I can tell you, it went so smoothly that at this point in time, we are even reluctant to really to come back to the office. I mean, we've been having conversations with all the workforce, and in terms of your follow-up question, what are our plans in coming back to the office? Our approach right now is that of being a smart follower. Historically, we have always been a fast follower in terms of making a decision and going forward. But at this point of time, what we want to do is be a smart follower, because things are working so extremely well that we want to really take the time necessary to make the decision to really bring back the force. And even when we do that, actually, we just conducted a survey across the globe. Our approach has been more regional, geographical, based on taking people's concerns into account, and it's more or less also being very voluntary. Nobody's going to be mandated to come to the office if certain folks or individuals have their own personal constraints, issues, or challenges, and we don't expect more than 20 to 25% of the workforce to come back to the office before the end of the year.
Hey, Sandeep, thanks for the answer. A little context around Everest. How big?
So we are about $10 billion in revenue, global organization, and around roughly around 2,000 workforce across the globe.
And what do you do?
So I'm the Chief Information Officer for Reinsurance, as well as the Chief Digital Risk Group.
Excellent, excellent. And the insurance space you're in?
So we are both in, on the insurance side, we are primarily in commercial and casualty, property space, less of personal lines, and then on the reinsurance side, more on the catastrophic reinsurance.
Okay, gotcha. All right, stay with me. We'll circle back to you here in just a minute, please. Next up, we have Dutt. Kalluri. Dutt is the Senior Vice President and Global Technology Executive at Broadridge. Dutt, welcome to the program. You there?
Thank you, Hunter. Yes, I'm here.
Good to see you. A little bit of context around Broadridge.
Broadridge is a global fintech. We are into two broad areas. One is investor communications services and global technology and operations. So every one of you, if you have a financial dealing, like, if you receive a statement, that probably went through our systems to give you that statement. We are also into post-trade management and reconciliations, into wealth management, capital markets, and various other financial services. So we proudly say at Broadridge that the financial services run through us.
So would you say it's got to be core to everything you do at Broadridge is technology, right?
Yes.
So an accelerator of value creation.
Absolutely.
And a competitive advantage, driving a competitive advantage?
Absolutely. Technology is one of our competitive advantage. In fact, one of our primary competitive advantage, because it's all about the speed of processing, the accuracy of processing, and bringing in the automation of that operational excellence. Automation plays critical. Like, for example, if I'm into post-trade management, right? Just making sure that you have the reconciliations, you have the positions and the various steps in post-trade management, combining human and RPA, robotic process automation, gives us an advantage in the speed with which we process and deliver the services to our customers.
Now, Dutt, we have a world-class agenda here with amazing points of view on human capital from Cecilia, Gerard on reimagining a business, Jim on kind of the state at Nationwide. When you think about what's unique about this crisis for you at Broadridge, what did the crisis allow you to do that you wouldn't normally would have been able to get done and through?
Steve, first and foremost, as a financial services processing company, it's mandatory, or we had to work from home and work from an office location. Changing that and working from home, which gives us the flexibility of extending our work day and making sure that we have the continuum of services. That's something that we wanted to do and we could get it. The second thing is digital acceleration has really, became a priority for us. Like, for example, a 5-year cloud migration program kind of shrunk to about 2 years, if you will. So the speed of migration, the speed of digitalization has really accelerated at Broadridge, and the pandemic helped in achieving those, or rather, setting us on that rapid path.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dutt. We'll circle back to here in just a minute. Next up, we have Pat Phelan. Pat is the VP of Market Research at Rimini Street. Pat, welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for having us. Glad to be here.
Great to see you. Hey, a little bit about Rimini Street, what your space and how you help clients.
Sure. Rimini Street is the leading third-party support provider for Oracle and SAP software products, and we're a Salesforce partner as well. Our company offers highly responsive and integrated application management and support services that helps your companies that have enterprise software licenses save significant money. It helps free up resources for innovation and hopefully helps you achieve better business outcomes. We have nearly 2,100 of the global Fortune 500, mid-market, public sector, and other organizations from a whole range of industries that rely on our services and us to be their trusted application enterprise software service partner and provider. We do independent third-party services that free up people and budget for innovation. You can imagine in this tight economy we're in right now, what we do is essential for some companies where cash is being squeezed out of the IT budget, and the businesses, on the other hand, demanding new ways of reaching their customers and new ways of operations. For some companies, we're helping them survive right now. And for others, we're the way for them to fund activities that are going to allow them to invest and thrive and grow.
Pat, what are you hearing or what are you doing with your clients helping CIOs manage IT transformation projects during this economic downturn?
Well, for many CIOs, and I think it was it Jim that had mentioned, their jobs are really changing. The investment roadmaps have been side railed by all that's going on, and non-essential projects are being put on hold. So in order to survive and even thrive, companies have to have a digital core. And I think Cecilia even had mentioned that as well as, our second speaker, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. So almost overnight, CIOs are shifting from investing in operations to investing in some kind of transformational solution that's going to serve their customers primarily on a digital platform. So what, for many, that includes that almost 100% remote work. And from our standpoint, what we do is help companies that are being strapped for cash and their budgets are being cut over in IT. We help them refocus their resources so they can make those kind of investments in digital that are going to allow them to stay afloat, acquire new businesses, react to the pace of changes happening right now.
You do it better, faster, cheaper, better service level probably than the traditional guys. Well,
yes.
And then you help refocus the new found money on innovation and transformation. What are people doing there?
Well, we're seeing, and I was interested to hear what other folks are doing. We're seeing a lot of rapid deployment of customer-facing, customer-engaging sort of apps, and it may be re-engineering how you interact with the call center. But that investment, it's not in the back office right now. It's not in keeping your ERP system afloat. Those things are running, and they may not be perfect, but they're running. The investments that are happening are in engaging, we call those customer facing, but the customer engagement sort of touch points that the company has. And some organizations that were doing well, like think of Uber in this digital world, aren't doing so well now because people aren't going anywhere, right? But Uber Eats, on the other hand, delivering food to folks that are stuck at home, they are doing well. So just investing in digital is not enough. What we're seeing is that the investment has to be where the pain points are, and the folks that are touching on that quickly and reacting quickly. The one example of taking a new app to market in six days or 6 hours, whatever it was, instead of 6 months, that's the kind of thing that we're seeing really creative solutions come to the forefront.
Pretty good time to be in technology, right?
Oh, we love it. Yes.
Great. Pat, stay with us. We'll circle back to you. Next up, Michael Salas, CIO and CDO at SUEZ in North America. Michael's an HMG transformational CIO. Michael, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter. G'day. Thanks for inviting me to share the story at SUEZ.
Excellent. Hey, you guys are an essential service. So you stayed on the job. What's different in the past 120 days for you? And what are you thinking about now in terms of innovation or being able to get interesting initiatives done that you wouldn't normally be able to get through?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think it's been definitely a challenging sort of time. SUEZ, for those that don't know, we're one of the leader environmental services company globally with about 90,000 people. And here in North America, we provide water services to about 7 million people. So when the pandemic hit, we've got some big operations in Bergen County in New Jersey, in Westchester County here in New York, and also in Nassau County. So pretty much our operations were where the epicenters were. And so we had to take a very balanced approach around those essential workers that need to be at the plant to make sure the water's running, to make sure that the main breaks are being fixed and things like that. And then everyone that's supporting those essential workers in the corporate office or support services or whatever it may be. So, the support side or the non-essential worker side, we very quickly moved them from work from home, and some of our investments in digital over the last couple of years really allowed that to happen really quickly. And then for those that were, still having to work at the plants and still having to go and maintain the system and fix the pipes and things like that, we had to make sure it was a safe environment for them to be able to work, and implementing our business continuity plans and then our health and safety plans around all of that. And I got to tell you, I worked for a startup during the dot-com bust. I worked in financial services during the GFC, and now in an essential service during this. And this was definitely one of the most challenging times in my career, but also very rewarding to see how well the technology team performed and really brought the business out of this crisis.
What have you learned from a leadership point of view?
Look, I think we all talk a lot about agile and that we've got some agile practices and stuff like that. And I think this whole work from home really gets you to change the way that you think and the way that you operate and engage with your team. You're not having those full-day planning sessions or monthly meetings and stuff like that, the short, sharp sort of stand-ups every day, making sure very transparent with the communication. It's obviously a lot harder to walk the floor and have a chat with the staff and see how things are going. You're relying a lot more on the data that's coming out of your systems. And then, being, constant in terms of talking to our clients and making sure we continue to delivering their projects and their initiatives, continuing to make sure, as Jim was saying, that the operations is working. So it's, it's a different way of working. And what we've seen is the business, and here in North America, it's a 150-year-old business, right? And the methodology or the thought was, hey, if the workers and essential workers are going to be in the office, so does everyone else. Yeah, that mindset is shifting a little bit, and you start to see some of these agile practices happening in some of the traditional business sort of departments that were very against it. So it's great to see this change, and great to see that the business are really taking advantage of some of these digital tools, Zoom and things like that, to make sure we're interacting with each other.
Michael, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the program. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Gerard, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Hunter.
So pivoting off of what Michael just said, are the 2 to 4 day offsites, are they done forever? What do you think? What are your thoughts about that? Management meetings.
I think you'll definitely see a lot less of them. Ourselves, we're considering making more of the folks remote permanently. Makes at least 50% of our jobs we're considering potentially making permanently remote. And as you mentioned about the daily stand-ups, it's much shorter, but more frequent, and you really stick together, are always on the same page by that form of communication. And you realize, 15-minute meetings is all you need to get your points accomplished and to keep everyone up to date. So I think it's going to be quite a unique difference as we get back from this.
Hey, Gerard, did I hear 15 or 50?
50.
50. Okay. Here's another question. And this is for the whole panel. Everyone can turn their microphones on and just jump in if you want. Do you notice in working now through digital platforms, whether it's Teams, WebEx, Zoom, or whatever, that the communication is a lot more factual driven and direct and right to the point? Gerard?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, what happens is I think, it puts a focus on whatever you're delivering. Because every Zoom meeting we share the information up, and so it's important whatever you put out there. Versus, I think a lot of times you're less likely when you're in face-to-face meetings. People don't have agendas. People show up late. I think that's the other thing. The productivity of the meetings have gone way up because everybody's on time. We finish the meetings quicker, and everyone has information prepared. And any of those sidebars that needed to happen to conclude something actually happened prior to the meeting. So I think it's a major difference.
We all need to do to win in this environment. Anyone want to jump in, Michael?
Yeah, sure. Look, I completely agree with Gerard. I think the meetings are more pointed and to the point. There's less sort of small talk, which you need to complement with something else. I know in our business, what we're trying to push with the team is to make sure we're not taking a full hour of a meeting. If we need a full hour, then we're cutting it at 50 minutes because everyone's working from home. And in the office, we'd walk from one conference room to the other conference room or go grab a coffee. Now we're kind of stuck in our chair at home. So we've got to be mindful of our clients and how much of their time we're taking. So I'm seeing a lot of that in my team.
Excellent. Pat, same thing?
Well, actually what we're seeing, all those, but we're also seeing automation taking on even more importance, like meeting minutes, agendas, shared collaborative tools, processes because we've gone to virtual events instead of live events, processes for tracking event requests that we never really had to do before. So tools have become a huge game changer for us as well.
Thanks, Pat.
Much more formal.
What are some of the game-changing technologies that help you differentiate and win?
Well, we're using Zoom quite a bit, but we have really leveraged the daylights out of Teams. Okay. And Smartsheet is one that we use, and we've got some of our own internally built artificial intelligence tools that we're using for scheduling and caseload management. But just from the inter-office collaboration, we have embraced Teams wholeheartedly, and that's been a real valuable thing for us.
Excellent, Pat. Thanks for sharing. Sandeep, other ideas on game-changing technologies?
Absolutely, right. I mean, before the COVID thing, our focus and emphasis clearly was on data analytics, especially being in an insurance and reinsurance company that deals with humongous amount of data, and more so when I'm being a reinsurer where we actually insure some of the insurance companies out over there too. We have to deal with humongous amount of IoT data that's made available to us. So how do we kind of use the information available to us in a game-changing way is one of the areas where we were focusing on. Besides what Pat just mentioned about automation and data analytics, I mean, we are leveraging Watson for doing AI machine learning for all the submission intake, claims adjudication and all. But since the COVID thing, one of the other things where we are really ramping up, and we had ramped up very quickly, but more so now, is we just a year or so back, we had transitioned our entire data center off our on-prem data center to kind of a private cloud. But now the emphasis is more towards public cloud. So that, I believe, is going to really get accelerated a lot more than what we were planning and doing. And the second is a connected workforce, because what we see right now is the world we operate in, and more so even within my company, we're going to make a completely 180-degree shift from having most of the workforce working in the office to probably having a very small footprint of the workforce in the office and leaning towards work from anywhere, which is going to also help us in our talent acquisition or talent sourcing strategy. Also create some other challenges which we are trying to take into account. It's easy for us right now, since everybody's at home, to use Teams and collaboration tools and work with each other because everybody's in the same boat. But when half your team is in the office and more than half of the team is outside the office, how do you collaborate? So there's going to be an increased emphasis around audio video conferencing tools, Yammer. Mm-hmm. How do you embed all of these tools in your day-to-day life as well as day-to-day products? Because it's still glitchy. It has worked very well, but I think the whole notion around digital workplace and connected workforce is where we're going to be focusing a lot more, along with cloud.
Thanks, Sandeep. Great points. Hey, back to you, Dutt. Dutt, you're working with the board right now. How are you working with them to convince them to spend more on innovation and technology?
Well, explaining to them real-time use cases or business use cases is something that we are doing, right? Let me give you an example, Hunter, right? If you take wealth management, we know that there is almost a $30 trillion of wealth going to change hands from baby boomers to the digital natives. So the way the baby boomers look at wealth management is very different from the way that the digital natives look at it, right? The baby boomers are used to sitting across an advisor, a wealth advisor, and look at that 6-inch of stack, which talks to them about their portfolio, their investments, and etc. Whereas a digital native would like to have that information in a Twitter-like, quick bits, quick bites. Now, how does the new age digital, wealth advisor look like? A new age wealth advisor will be a hybrid augmented intelligence, the way I call it, right? When we say a augmented or a hybrid intelligence, you have human intelligence and artificial intelligence coming together, which means I can be location independent. I can be anywhere as a wealth advisor and provide the parameters that my potential client or customer gave me, feed it to a bot, which will do the analysis and give it to me. I'm on a collaborative environment with my client, talking to that person, chatting, whether video or audio, and then have the ability to, in real time, commit a transaction on the networks of trust, which is a blockchain. And then underneath, we have the data that does the analysis and gives us the scenarios to come up with a best consumer-centric or an investor-centric advice. Explaining this to my board, explaining these kind of examples to the board, makes them realize that unless you change, you transform, and you evolve and start creating those componentized approach, as an organization, you perish or you will have a Kodak moment. Those are the kind of approaches that we are taking to talk to our board, convince them, and actually gain more, budgets for our digital investments.
And is it working, Dutt?
It is working. Yes.
Excellent. Great job. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, Gerard, you still with us?
Yes.
When you think about your journey you've been on, you've been having probably a lot of C-suite discussions, boardroom discussions around gaining funding for new projects and initiatives. How's that story going?
Well, we've obviously changed the whole investment process to focus in on 3 roadmaps, and one, customer journey, logistics, and then shared services. And we put like I said earlier, I believe it alluded to it, put a business sponsor in charge of each one of those and pair them with an IT sponsor, and we prioritize the top, whatever it may be, initiatives within each of them. We allot the funding according to the goals for that year in each of those categories. And then we just go in an agile fashion, constantly going off the roadmap. So that has really improved our agility to get things done. And we're getting more to, everybody's now talking about not getting this big project done 7 months from now. We're talking about sprint 4 or 5, 17. MVP 1, 1.2, and everybody's now gotten into it, and because there's less people and people are more collaborative, it's really accelerated the whole process. It's been fantastic, and I'm amazed that we can get more done with 2 of the right people than 15 people in total prior, that maybe some were right, some weren't right, but just so much administrative overhead is gone. We make decisions now. We don't go through processes and wait for people to approve things. We make decisions and move.
I'm really looking forward, Gerard, to tracking your story and following you and interviewing you as this whole unfolds.
Got a lot of good stuff coming. Major transformation. So thank you.
Very cool. Thanks for coming on the program, Gerard. Hey, Michael, final word from you regarding leadership style over the years. You've had great recognition by both HMG and I know CIO Magazine recognized you as a top Hall of Famer.
Yeah, definitely. It's great that we've been recognized, that the team's been recognized for the work that they've done in the digital transformation over the last sort of 3 years in our water business. It's great. I think it's important because with this pandemic, we've seen the executive team really have an aha moment in terms of those investments and having conversations around, well, if we didn't invest in that cloud-based telephony or IVR solution for the call center, there's no way we could have sent 9 call centers home and work from home and not drop a heartbeat. So it's been really good from that point of view, and it's great that the team get recognized for the initiatives they've delivered. And look, I'm a big believer. Your technology organization is an extension of your business, and it's got to enable your business strategy. And that's what I try and do with my team, just deliver the initiatives the business wants us to do, help them with strategy, help them make the right decisions, and then operate a platform from that point of view.
Excellent. Good stuff. Hey, a comment for each of you as we close up, a comment of hope and inspiration given this difficult time. We're only in month 4. I was speaking with Jerry Martin Flickinger, the global CTO of Starbucks, back in February. She said, Hunter, this isn't going to be a sprint. This is a marathon. Michael, you first. A comment of hope and inspiration.
Look, I think, like you mentioned before, it's we've got to take advantage of this crisis and what it means from a technology point of view. I think there's a number of businesses that have had to cut costs, and SUEZ is one of those. But we're also doubling down on innovation and where we see the future going, whether it's around automation, whether it's continued investment in digital or the customer journey. So I think for a number of the CIOs, there's a lot more focus now on what the business wants us to deliver, whereas a year ago, we had so many projects that we were doing that we're starting to struggle and see the cracks a little bit. So I think it's a great time to be a CIO, to sit on the board table, have a seat at the table, talk business strategy, talk how technology can enable that strategy and how we can grow the business through some of these technologies or developments that we do.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. Pat, a quick comment on hope?
Yes, I've got a message for CIOs, and I think Michael hit the nail on the head here. For most CIOs, operating your data center now is going to be the least of your priorities. Of course, it's got to run, but what CEOs really need from their CIO is adaptable, strategic guidance. And as Michael said, that seat at the table is going to be really critical. CIOs can be the most influential person in terms of IT purchasing decisions right now. So this is your time to shine. Look at your spending pools. Make sure that the revenue on the front end lines up with your investments and costs on the back end. So go after it now, CIOs. This is your time to really make a difference in the business.
Pat, well said. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Hey, Dutt, any final comment?
Absolutely. I feel that this is the starting of the digital age, and the transformation is here, and organizations that don't transform today will probably have tough time going into tomorrow.
Thanks, Dutt. Sandeep?
Yep, just echoing everybody else's comment, all I can say is whether you had a great experience during this COVID thing or you didn't have as an organization, as technologists and as CIOs, we all have some significant tailwind behind us. If you have had a great experience as part of this, you have so much credibility within the organization that it's going to really, it's for us to really leverage that opportunity and lift it forward. And to Pat's point is, we are all at the driver's seat now, knowingly or unknowingly, willingly or unwillingly, and it's for you to really make the most out of it. For folks who have not had a great experience, you still have a significant tailwind because every organization now realizes the importance of technology, and the world is going to be very different post 2020 in terms of where the focus is more around distributed workforce, how you're going to manage that, and technology is going to be the key driver behind that.
Sandeep, thanks so much for coming on the program. Great points. Gerard, final word. Gerard, yeah.
No, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I think to second what a few of the members mentioned is you really need to take advantage of this COVID. We can't, and when we come back from it, we can't let things go back to the way they were. We really have to take all the positives that came out of it from the collaboration perspective, the focus, the prioritization, and really keep that going to really give our companies an edge and efficiency that they've never seen before.
Hey, Gerard, thanks for coming on the program. Sandeep, Dutt, Pat, Michael, rockstar job. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Stay in touch. Love to have you all back again here soon. We're going to go right into our next session. Mark Sander, Industry Search Executive Update. Mark, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you, Hunter. And I'd like to welcome my three panelists, Renee, Hugo, and Mark. So today, we want to recognize that, it's a tough time for industry and business as a whole. The job market's feeling it more than any other segment, it looks like. On the one hand, we have record unemployment, entire segments of the economy essentially on hold, and the high probability of unprecedented bankruptcies at all levels of the economy and businesses, also putting off strategic key initiatives and decisions until markets become more stable. On the other hand, we have some industries thriving in unprecedented growth and profits. We've heard today about some great success stories in digital transformation and services necessary for COVID. I think Satya Nadella in April said it from Microsoft, said it best when he said, we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. I'd expand on that sentiment and say that we've also seen several years of transformation in our economy in those same few months. And as we said, companies that have been part of that transformation have prospered. Those that haven't have suffered. So in our brief time together today, we want to explore what that means to both you as leaders or potential job seekers, and how you can pivot in the current trade winds. To set that stage, we're going to try and focus on 2 key drivers in today's job market. The obvious one, the first, the pandemic, and then the second one, less obvious, the recent trend in change in ownership and structure of companies over the last 20 years, and how that's changed the strengths and competencies we look for in our IT leaders. I don't think many realize that in the past 20 years, the number of publicly traded companies on the US stock exchanges has fallen by more than 50%. More than half of those have been the result of corporate mergers or acquisitions, and the majority of the rest have been private equity, companies taken private. A great example of that is one of the companies I worked for a long time ago, Pfizer. Back in the 90s, compared to today, there are at least 7 major competitors that are now part of Pfizer. So how many CIO positions does that mean were eliminated? There are definitely dozens of vice presidents and hundreds of director positions that no longer exist. And on the other side, we have private equity, which now owns record proportions of our industry and is constantly changing the priorities and expectations of an organization. So that said, I want to turn to my colleagues and throw out, I guess, to Hugo for the first question. You know, what do searches look like for you in the last 4 months?
Well, searches are on the uptick. There's a lot in the pipeline. I think the industry, as you're, reflected, we definitely felt the pain, in March and April, but it's really come back strong. It's not come back strong evenly. There are certain sectors that, of course, do better than others, and tech and healthcare on the other side is coming back. They got some problems, but there's a lot in the pipeline. There's big needs here. Life sciences, very strong. Higher ed, not so, because there's a lot of uncertainty. What are we going to do in the fall? I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty there. But I think we got to give our CIO community a pat on the back, because we're as a whole, we've done extremely well. And I think there's some good points that we look for. And it's not just it's not operations now. It's front end. It's customer facing. And I think there's a lot of positions out there. There's a lot of digital transformation leadership roles, data science, chief data officers and the like, CTOs that are, we need people that are really can be adaptive. We need people that can, change fast. And we've had some great examples of that today, where, boy, we're changing it. We've changed process in 6 days versus 6 months. You've heard this, and that's what we need to look for, these type of leaders. And I think there's a big demand. It's only going to get stronger as we move into this kind of hybrid workforce moving forward.
Renee, what about from your perspective?
Sure. Thank you, Mark, for the question. And Mark and Hugo, good to see you both. We as a firm, my firm, Pearson Partners, I think we'll end up the year, if I could prognosticate a minute, flat with 2019, maybe just a little bit down. But I agree with Hugo. We're seeing a pickup of business, of interesting searches that our clients want us to help them with. So I don't have exact numbers, just more gut instinct at this point, Mark.
Thanks. And Mark Polansky, I'd like to throw a different question at you. Korn Ferry does a tremendous amount of research and publications on positionings. What's Korn Ferry saying about when we're going to see a pivot, and what direction are we going to be pivoting to?
I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that question, Mark. Nobody's saying for sure they know what the future looks like. That's a dangerous game to play. So if that is a dangerous game to play, what's the answer? And Renee mentioned it, and so many others have mentioned it today during the course of this summit, and that's flexibility, agility, the ability to adapt, and those competencies, those attributes are becoming more and more. They've always been, but they're now becoming increasingly important in the searches we conduct. I spoke just this morning with a client of mine who had put a CIO search on hold almost 4 months ago, and we were talking about whether or not we needed to update the spec, and the only thing the conversation was focused on was the ability to change directions, to adapt, to pivot with whatever comes down the pike. And like Hugo and Renee as well, we all saw that ghastly silence March and April, where our clients were not canceling searches per se, but they were postponing them. Because of bandwidth, our clients were saying, look, we don't have the time or the energy. We're working 7/24 now on survival. on viability of the organization, on keeping X thousand of our associates connected at home and engaged and in good health. And we can't just take time out to do this search. We'll come back to it. So some of you may have heard me on previous summits this spring say, we'll be back in the fall, we'll be back in fourth quarter. But just as Hugo and Renee said, it's come back with a vengeance. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've taken on 6 new assignments, and that's usually my total capacity at any one given time. So we're busy. We're seeing more activity from a much broader swath of the economy, but still, unfortunately, not travel, hospitality, and leisure, not so much consumer products and services.
Well, thank you. If I look at it from the other side, not as a candidate, but say I'm a CIO and I've lost a critical position in this difficult time, what do the three of you recommend on the best way to efficiently fill that role as quickly as possible, especially given the constraints that Mark's just articulated that we're all under? I'll leave that open to the volunteer.
Okay,
Go ahead,
question, Mark. Sorry, Mark. Am I, from the perspective of the candidate or of the client? I can answer either way, but tell me which you prefer.
This one was meant to be from the client. Say I'm a CIO and I just lost my CTO. How do I fill this one? I don't have time and we can't bring people in on an interview and my HR organization is remote.
It's interesting you say we can't bring people in on an interview. And I've said this on prior HMG live forums. Earlier this year, about a month ago, I just finished my first search, first time for me ever, that no one met anyone in person. And this is a sizable, financial services client of mine. And I didn't meet the candidate in person. The client didn't. The candidate didn't go to the campus where he's going to be working. We're relocating him, to a different state. So, it can be done. But just as Mark mentioned, my client paused a little bit, kind of, March, April-ish, to figure that out. How do we do that? If I'm the CISO of that organization and I'm talking about remotely onboarding someone, right, there are inherent security risks there that I might not otherwise have to deal with if someone's coming into my office, right? So it took some time to plan, but it can be done. And I'm sure other companies are thinking the same thing. How do we remotely hire, remotely onboard?
Yeah, I'd add to that. I mean, there's several searches from soup to nuts without ever physically shaking the hand of the candidate right now, and just had one 2 weeks ago. So it's happening. I mean, we're lucky we got good technology. I mean, we're doing it right now. The clients are doing it. It's at the end game where it's interesting, and there's not one size fits all. Sometimes that even depends where you physically are, what part of the world you are, what part of the United States you're in. But getting on planes is tough for candidates to do, and sometimes this is reality. Sometimes there's a candidate in, for a position in New York, there's a candidate in Florida, and there's a candidate here in the New York area. At the end, the last meeting is to, meet safely in an environment on site where, we can see each other. We may do the elbow thing even, but we can see each other, and that's happening, but I think it's not even. And I think it really depends on the business and where you physically are. And also on individuals. It is a risk that we have to want to take on both sides.
I'll just jump in real quickly, Hugo. I just had finished a CFO search for a manufacturing client, and my finalist candidate was 3 states away from my client location, packed up the family, and they drove for the on-site final interview rather than getting on the plane.
Yep.
Before we run out of time, I'd like to hit one question from the other side. Private equity. How do you see private equity search differing from a publicly traded company? And do you find that they look for different skill sets and experiences?
Yeah, Mark, to your earlier point about fewer public companies, I think the total number of companies must be something close to what it's always been. There's a shift from public companies to private companies that are bought back by their owners or bought back by management in a leveraged buyout. We haven't heard that expression recently, LBOs, but it's going to come back this fall and this winter as companies look for ways to survive and look for injections of cash. But this private equity phenomenon has been going on now since the mid to late 90s. And with a couple of bumps here and there, it's been pretty much very active for the last 25 years. And it represents a whole different level of risk and reward for everybody, for the investor, for talent, and for leadership. And if you are able to tolerate some risk, and some are riskier than others, of course, private equity can be a wonderful place. The cultures are usually a bit different, not better, not worse, but different, usually faster, usually more demanding, usually less tolerant, because they've got to get where they're going fast, either by competitive pressure or they're going to run out of cash. So they need to get it done. And if you like living on adrenaline, and if you like that kind of camaraderie and team spirit to get the job done, boy, that would just be a great place for you to be. So highly recommend that you give it some consideration.
Hugo or Renee, anything to add?
Just absolutely. Our firm, Pearson Partners, about 20% of our work year over year is for private equity-backed portfolio companies for a variety of positions. Mark's exactly right. Different culture, different cadence and pace of work, different risk level. And so that you look for a different candidate profile for all those reasons.
Yeah. Okay, I know we want to try and wrap up before they give us the hook because we're getting close to the end of our time. Why don't we give each a minute or two to have a closing statement or anything else you'd like to add. Hugo, since you're on screen, you want to go first?
Sure. I would definitely, we haven't really talked much about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think this is not just about COVID, but this is about other things that are happening in our world right now. But we talked about customer-facing products and services. No better way to make sure you can do a better job doing that than really making sure you're addressing diversity and inclusion.
Renee?
Sure, I would just echo the line that I've said many times, and I know Hunter has said, and someone else said earlier today, there is no better time to be a technology leader in your company than right now, because you have an impact opportunity on your business that's unparalleled.
And then Mark, bring it home.
Now, last but not least, I would warn or implore or recommend that everybody be prepared. Yes, today is the best time to be an IT executive, but this fall is going to be even better when this thing starts getting to a normal, whatever that will be. The opportunities are going to be tremendous. In fact, the companies that are hiring now are strong companies, great balance sheets, great business plan, great management teams. And so when that call comes, please be ready. Get your digital resume on LinkedIn ready, get your physical resume, practice interviewing by video, and take the calls and think carefully. Good luck.
Good luck.
Hey, Mark, thanks so much. Mark Sander, thanks so much. Guys, you guys are all my friends. Hugo, Renee, Mark Polansky, thank you, guys. Great job.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
See you soon. Next up is Ajoy Kumar, leading the panel on securing the future of work. Ajoy, welcome.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we got you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm having a bit of a technical problem, so wanted to be sure that you can hear me okay. So thank you, Hunter, for handing over to me. I have 4 panelists with me: Elisa, I have Ruta, I have Mandar, and I have Benny. And we are going to discuss the future of the secure workplace. And we have heard so much discussion from our panelists a bit earlier on, where they have been talking about the digital transformation, and we heard the profound quote from Mark that he reminded us what Satya had said about the digital transformation that has taken them has basically sped up in such a meaningful way that there is no going back. And that has been the sentiment that I've been hearing in the panel discussion. So with that, the way I plan to run the panel is that I'll have each of the panelists basically just give an introductory statement, and then I will go through the Q&A with them. So with that, Elisa, I'll start with you. Why don't you take a minute to talk about yourself and the things that you're interested in?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Alyssa Abdullah. I am the Deputy Chief Security Officer for MasterCard. And as you all probably know, we are responsible for ensuring that transactions occur between partnerships, between individuals, financial institutions, governments, businesses, that they're able to realize their largest and greatest potential by making transactions safe and secure and simple and smart. And so that's kind of what our purpose is at MasterCard. When we think about securing the future of work and how that plays a role in what we do, or kind of what I do at MasterCard, I think about the fact that now I think everyone is a more compassionate employer, right? We are a more compassionate employer and a more compassionate workforce. What I mean by that, we're taking Zoom or calls, and we're enabling, the dog to walk in the background or the kids to walk around in the background and things like that. But there's a security perspective to that as well. And so even though now we're more compassionate about what our companies or what our employees are doing, we have to maintain the security stance and make sure the controls are in place and make sure the data is secure and make sure the data is safe. And this really goes to prove now that the endpoint is not necessarily a hardware device, that the endpoint is actually probably the piece of data. It's not even the person anymore, it's the data. So when we think about securing the future of work, it's really the securing of data. I don't think much has changed other than our thirst, hunger, and level of consumption of how we plan on doing that. A lot of the projects that we've seen in the security space are those that we've been asking for a while. Now it's really more real because we have people sitting at home in remote environments. And I think all of our peers, whether they're CIOs, CXOs, CDOs, whatever your X is in the middle of there, all of our peers are now saying, yeah, we got to make sure that that security project on and happens right away. So I think when we think about securing the workforce of the future, you'll see a lot of the projects that have kind of been in our back pocket now coming to the forefront and being very, very, very important, and now finally getting budgeted.
Very good to hear that, Elisa. Thank you for the introduction. Ruda, you want to go next, please?
Yeah, sure. So, pardon the background noise. The landscaper guys just walked in, so as I started speaking. So, hi everyone, hope you're all doing well and staying healthy. I am Ruta Almeida. I am the Chief Information Security Officer at Delta Dental of New Jersey and Connecticut. Our goal at Delta Dental is to ensure that your beautiful smile stays healthy and intact and your data stays protected while we ensure your smile stays healthy. So that's our tagline that I would like to use. And I'm really glad to be here. Thank you, HMG. Thank you, Hunter. And definitely during these times of uncertainty, I would like to know and discuss with my fellow panelists, how can one explain when things don't go as we assumed, or even better, sometimes, how do we explain when things go as per your assumption and it actually defies all the assumptions. So during these uncertain times, as Alyssa mentioned, there are a few things that were accelerated from a goal perspective in our environment, which is always good, as is the new saying that you never let crisis go to waste. So definitely that paid off, and the goals or the strategic initiatives that were either put in the back burner or were slowly being enhanced are now picking up pace, and we are ensuring that we are working in this new agile environment while supporting our workforce.
Thank you, Ruta. Hey, Mandar, would you like to build on what Ruta said and how basically we should not let good crisis go waste, because that goes well for everyone, right? Whether you are a CIO or CISO or any other in other scenarios, that basically is a universal saying that I really like. So Mandar, with that, I'll hand over to you.
Great, Ajay, thank you. So just by way of introduction, my name's Mandar Jege. With Citi, and I manage technology risk for the Global Consumer Bank. Just a quick disclaimer before I start, standard language. All opinions are mine, do not reflect Citi's environment or Citi's opinion. So, just coming to this question of the workplace of the future, if you'd asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have shared this, sort of dream aspiration of we will have virtual teams, commuting time is going to go down, work from anywhere, anytime you feel like. And then 6 months down, suddenly the future is now. So, this is all still very much unfolding. So I'm not saying we've hit all those things that we would expect to see over the next few years. But it's amazing. And to Ruta's point, the crisis accelerating a lot of change that we've been trying to get in place, whether it is about people adopting virtual technologies and making it a part of what they do on a much more enhanced basis than we used to have. We are seeing a lot of that. The ability to tap talent. Today we are finding that people are much more open to the idea that I can have someone instead of our typical hubs. We can tap into people in any location because it really doesn't matter. And where people had a reluctance, it has forced them to get over that reluctance. So it has opened up a number of things that we didn't have in the past. So yeah, again, like I said, the future is now, and we are seeing a lot of things that may not have happened suddenly coming together because people were forced to get there. Ajay,
thank you, Mandar. Thank you very much. Hey, Benny, on to you. What's your thought on what Mandar said? Would you build on like how the future is here? And what do you think has happened to the cybersecurity during this COVID-19 pandemic? Do you think we have improved our posture? Do you think we have gone down? So I'd like you to introduce yourself and also give a comment on the state of the cybersecurity during COVID-19.
Sure, thank you. And I'm Benny Lopez. I'm the CEO for SoftTech North America and also Managing Director for the industrial segment. So, we're a global company, right? We're in 18 plus countries, I believe, in 3 continents. So to your question, it really depends on where you're talking about. In some cases, we're saying that COVID has only uncovered some not that very great practices for some of our clients. So we are focusing on taking care of fundamentals, to be honest, with some of them. In other places, then there are very specific areas where we're helping them improve. And if there was 2 areas where I would focus is on how this has changed or evolved, has been definitely the endpoint. Because whatever patterns you were following before, or whatever structure or infrastructure you had before, is completely shifted from your secure environment to somewhere else. So you need to have a different set of procedures and tools and add AI to monitor those behaviors, because now you need to catch funny behaviors differently, because now you have a more, excuse me, can you hear me okay, by the way?
There's a bit of a static, but generally you're audible.
All right, I'm sorry about that. So what I was saying is that the endpoint is definitely one area where we need to enhance how we manage it, because the patterns are different now to what they used to be. And the second area is that we never ever forget that the most relevant aspect that we have to take care of are people behaviors, and people awareness, and people ability to productively and securely deliver the work. So we sometimes focus, or we see clients focusing too much on the technology, which is very relevant. We must never forget that this is an end-to-end process where people are at the center of it to make sure that they are keeping the guard up and making sure we sustain everything secure, given the whole environment that we live in right now.
Got it. Thank you, Benny. Thank you for those points. Maybe we'll expand a little bit more on the technical side that you brought up towards the endpoint security. So given that our threat landscape has increased because our attack surface has increased, the endpoint, which was traditionally within a building that we could trust, now is walked over all over the globe, right? We have all supply chains. There are people working from all corners of the world, and they're working from homes. Even like in our offshore locations, we sort of like had a protective controls, and those things like those traditional controls of being in building and monitoring cameras, those are all gone. So what are the specific steps you're taking to sort of like protect the future workplace where there will be a need to work from anywhere, any place, anytime? So how are you tackling that? I think Benny is switching the headphones. Anyone else? Mandar, Ruta, Elisa, anyone, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, I can go. So with the new way of working, you know, it is safe to say that in the near future, not everybody is going to come back to the workplace. There will be something like a hybrid work environment where there will be some folks working from home permanently or working from home most of the days of the week, and some folks coming into work. So definitely it's going to be a hybrid environment. And to support that, I think from a security perspective, there needs to be a shift in the focus. So more on focus on education awareness around remote working, the do's and don'ts, what's the acceptable use policy, what's your remote working policy for your users as they are shifting to different work environments. Also awareness around general, you know, pandemic related attacks that are happening. And every day you see something new is happening, it's good to keep your users aware of what's going on. So when they do see something, get a funny looking email, they know what to do with it, or rather not to do anything with it and delete it. Also, one thing that we did notice when we moved to the new environment is tweaking of some of our security alerting algorithms to support the new way of working and to limit the false positives and save valuable time for our security team. Because we want certain alerts coming, hey, somebody logged in from here or there, which is now their, you know, new norm, so to speak, and not logging in daily from office environment. Definitely enhance security monitoring and alerting. What kinds of alerts you as a team used to earlier that might not be relevant right now. There could be certain physical security aspect of it that you can shift your focus into something else. Also learn to support changes in working style and employee experience that enable employees to work more transparently and collaborate effectively. So definitely, I think that the investment in enhancing the security posture and supporting remote work from a business process and security perspective, whether the investment is happening now or it was happening as you move through the pandemic response, it definitely is going to pay off.
I said I wanted to expand on that just a little bit, only because we were working in a space where we were building for efficiency, and now we're building for resilience. There's as we've all heard, an opportunity where the pandemic, we may all shut back down all over again. And so we have to be ready to ebb and flow and flex as appropriate. And so if you think about it from that perspective, or from a security perspective, we were trying to make sure in previous times that we were really, really efficient. But now we have to think about being really, really resilient, and that those things that we put in place whether it's endpoint security, whether we're talking about data classifications or securing the data, those things that we put in place don't get rolled back, that they stay in place, and that we're able to throttle as needed based on what the level of response and things like that are going to happen in the future in terms of this pandemic.
Yeah, I think we lost Mandar. I mean, we lost Ajoy. We have Mandar. So yeah, you can go.
I think that's part of our test of resiliency here. So I think we can continue the conversation. But I want to go back to something Benny mentioned. I think this is turning our way of managing a little bit, not maybe on its head, but it is significantly changing the way we are managing the environment. Some of the examples, Ruta, you brought up, we cannot use those same indicators of a compromise or a concern as we used to, because it's turned our network, what I would call inside out. As opposed to the old way of our network, of course, you had remote connectivity and so on, but the bulk of our capability was people were in offices, you had workstations you knew fairly well, you had your pipes you knew fairly well, and you had your endpoints. Now it's gone to the point where you only know one endpoint, which is your server, but the other endpoint and even the pipe that it's going to get you there, you have no control and sometimes even limited understanding. So, for us being a global company, if we are working, there's a big difference even in the pipe between the capability of bandwidth I would have here in the US or even in parts of the US versus what some of my team members or counterparts may have in in Asia or some other area where they may not have that same sort of capability. And then really looking at the security aspect, being able to now provide a lot of people whose jobs were never meant originally to have that sort of flexibility. How do you manage that? I mean, we've done things like turning off the ability to print entirely. So there's been a lot of that, firstly, knee-jerk reaction. A lot of it is not sustainable. So I think this is not just a once and done. I think we are going to also learn from this as we go along, because some of the controls we put in place as an immediate step, we are going to have to revisit them because those are not sustainable. So if we want the business to continue to evolve, we are going to have to figure out how we do things differently, whether it is the human aspect or the technology aspect.
Thank you. Yes, I would say, can you hear me okay now? Is that better?
Better.
All right, okay. I would second that, that this is going to be an iteration of pivoting to different procedures and potentially technologies. Because on the one hand, first we shifted to everybody, in our case, 15,000 people working remotely, securely from home, having already activated hundreds of BCPs. But then we have manufacturing clients that are also asking us to get back to their facilities now that they're allowed to get back to produce stuff. Some financial clients are also asking us to get back to their facilities. So now we have a mixed environment where we have to deal with, and never forget that this is going to continue to evolve, as you mentioned, because we not only have 100% clients or engagements working remotely, but now we have a mix of people working remotely from their homes, as well as from their client's facility, as well as from maybe one of our delivery centers. So we need to keep evolving all these SOPs on how we're going to now mixing and matching different environments. And that's why I go back to my early comment of the endpoint having to be enhanced with AI, because we need to identify multiple patterns on what is going on. Because, I mean, we're building, as I'm sure you are, everybody's building their own apps on how to securely bring people back to work in the different, whatever 4x10 strategy you may have. But at the same time, you cannot be 100% sure that they'll be using the platform so that you always know where they are. So you need to identify those patterns to make sure you know that she's working securely from home, or no, she's working securely from the client's facility, or she may be having booked a seat at one of our facilities. So all of that is going to be changing.
So let me ask you, we've had a lot of conversation about increasing and using AI and endpoints. Ruta mentions increased security monitoring and things like that. what are you all thinking about lowering investments? Are you all actually lowering your investments in physical security controls and IoT or anything like that? I'm finding that we probably won't lower, but we will throttle as appropriate. I think we'll, I heard earlier today someone from Avis, we heard someone from Nationwide, we heard a lot of folks today. I think there'll be a lot of conversation about throttling where it makes sense, moving some of our physical assets, buildings and locations. But I know that's one of the questions that Ajoy wanted us to talk about, which is, are we lowering our investments in other areas? My answer to that is going to be no, we're not lowering our investments because we're not lowering per se, but we'll throttle as needed and keep certain reinvest in other places and then take that investment away and do something. How do you all feel about that?
Yeah, so I agree with you. We are not lowering our investments. What we are doing is we are putting our emphasis in different areas as things evolve, right? So more emphasis on security awareness and training, more emphasis on supporting different working styles, ensuring enhanced security monitoring. Also, one other huge thing that is coming up with this pandemic is everyone is now working towards the agile delivery model. And this new delivery model, it requires continuous participation by the security teams with the modern application development methods. And if we as cybersecurity specialists don't have a seat at the table from the very beginning, we don't, then it's not going to be successful. The traditional method of various different checkpoints in the process is not going to work, because this is a very continuous, fast delivery model, and we need to be there as a security professional at every step in the way. Security office, we need to improve our understanding of the modern software development dynamics, the techniques, so that we can support them better as they are delivering at a much, much faster pace. Also, increasing cloud usage poses a moving security target for us. So in terms of security infrastructure, as cloud usage increases, that is something that we need to take into consideration and understand how that cost is going to affect. Will it be higher than the traditional virtual host, creating a different class of organizational risk? So these are the handful of new initiatives that come up with, I think right now most businesses are turning into that. And as a security organization, we need to evolve with that.
Very good. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
So we were talking about whether we were going to lower investments, and it doesn't sound like we are. So I'll now pass it back over to you to ask more questions.
Lisa, for you filling in. I really appreciate. I had my iPhone shut down, so thank you for that. So I know we are almost at the end of time. So what I'll ask you to do is one specific question I would want you all to answer, and then we'll basically hand it back to Hunter. So, you guys are talking about not lowering the investments, and you're continuing with shifting your priorities and shifting your investments, which means you will be rolling out some disruptive technologies which are new, and I do see a desire for you to innovate and continue going in that direction. So in this COVID times, has your tolerance gone down, has gone up? How are you treating your reputational risk with rolling out these new technologies at this time? So I'll start with you, Elisa, and we'll go across the table.
Our tolerance has gone down. We're less tolerant. I will say this. We're less tolerant. We want to fail quick. We want smaller sprints because we want to learn quickly so that we can recover quickly and continue to enable the workforce. We're focusing on a lot of collaborative solutions, whether that's collaborative internally or collaborative between governments or between banking institutions and merchants and things like that. And so as we are looking at different investments we're making and different technologies we're putting in place, we want to fail fast, fail quick, learn the lesson very early on so that we can recover quickly and have some great products to continue delivering.
Thank you, Lisa. Mandar, would you go next, please?
Sure. So I don't think our tolerance has changed. a lot of the things Alyssa described, and so did Ruta, going agile, continuous development, all of those are things that we already had in progress. So our tolerance hasn't changed. What we have had to do, because this was not a smooth glide path into a new world, it was a very sudden change. We had to make a number of changes immediately to be able to accommodate new ways of working, new things that needed to be done within almost a matter of weeks. So those things are tracked more as exceptions, and then very quickly we started turning them, declining them as we went through, and we built out the technology, the process, and the capabilities. So that's how we measured it, in the sense that we didn't change our risk tolerance. They were really exceptions. And then within a few weeks, as we built out the capabilities to manage those risk exceptions, we started turning them back or turning them off again. So I think, to answer your question, the tolerance really didn't change.
Thank you, Vander. Benny?
Well, as a company, it hasn't changed. It's actually increased our not acceptance of risk, because we service global clients all over the world. So we had to absolutely make sure that now that 15,000 people working from home, we need to make sure they continue to do it securely. So as a company, the tolerance has gone down. We're less tolerant to how we are doing that. What we're reminding our clients now in the vast variety of industries that we service is that it's not a one-time event. It's not a one-time decision that you have to make to say, yeah, let's give it a go to this new e-commerce platform because the other one is overflowing, etc. It has to be in the framework of your complete risk management and risk mitigation strategy. So we have to make sure we go to the right people and say, well, if you do this, these are going to be the risks. I mean, we don't want to be the bottleneck to stop you from reaching your business goals. We just want to make you aware of what the risks are involved in this, and then it's your call. I mean, that is how you need to navigate this type of decisions.
Thank you, Benny. And Ruta, last word.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll be very short. So our tolerance level has not changed. It remains the same whether we are complete remote or a hybrid environment, because our risk profile, in the sense that risk tolerance has not changed. So we are not going to change the way we allow things or don't allow things, or we are not going to change or give a little bit of leeway on the controls, because that's what governs our security strategy, and we are not going to change it just because of a pandemic.
Thank you very much, my panelists. Really appreciate, and also being resilient as I lost connection. So thank you for that. So Hunter, I'll turn back to you. The major message from panelists, our panelists, is that our CISOs and our leadership team basically believes the pandemic is not going to change our behavior. It's not going to change our demeanor. We'll continue to march along and make sure that we deliver on the secure enterprise for the future. With that, you, Hunter.
Great job, Ruta, Benny, Mandar, and Alyssa. Thank you so much. We do CISO Summit too, folks. Hey, a great summit here today, the 2020 New Jersey CIO Executive Leadership Summit, HMG Live. This is probably our 30th of the year. Really proud and happy to say great keynotes, great panels. What a great day. And a big shout out to New Jersey SIM for our partnership now going on over a decade, as well as our partner companies for the summit, which would include Commvault, Rimini Street, Softtech, and Nutanix. Thank you for your support and engagement. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. Really appreciate it. Please reach out to them and take a meeting with your local rep. Bye now.